What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of the debut album by Miss Dua Lipa from the UK. Singer-songwriter, this is a self-titled debut album. It's been in the works since 2015. Some singles came along the way, were pretty successful in the UK. Some of them have finally started to cross over in the US. And I say good. This is a viewer-recommended suggestion here, something that you guys had been pushing me to check out. You were saying, John, you have to check out the record. It's very different for pop right now in terms of what we're seeing on the very sterile Hot 100. This injects some life and flavor, and I have to agree. Maybe it's not quite as great as some people were telling me it was, but for me personally, I think this is a very, very solid start to Dua Lipa's career, and I'm happy with the way that this album went, at least as a whole. As far as the sound goes, I think her producers do a great job of bringing her voice out over some kind of darker dance beats, working in rhythmic guitars, some other percussion, and some stuff that definitely does follow some trends, like the whole tropical house thing, like on Hotter Than Hell, but it's done tasteful with the way that the marimba is worked in, some additional percussion. It works. It simply works for Dua Lipa's voice, and it works in a deeper register. It reminds me of like Marina and the Diamonds, Marina Diamondess at times, the way that she reaches these darker octaves with her voice, digs down deep in her voice and is able to unleash, but at the same time she's able to hit some higher notes with her voice as well, especially on some of the slower tracks, and while those are among my least favorites on this record, I think that overall she does a great job of taking control of her voice and owning these songs. The problem that I see with a lot of modern pop records is that they're top heavy, or else they're loaded up with potential singles and they don't feel cohesive at all, whereas Dua Lipa actually has kind of a feeling, an energy, and an aura about all 12 of the songs on the standard edition of this album, and while I don't love all of these by any means, I can at least praise it for that, having a connectivity, and these songs don't just feel like, oh, you know, like they have nothing to do, like one is really leaning towards the hip-hop and one is really leaning towards the more rock or electronic. It's like she fuses a little bit of R&B, a little bit of rock, a little bit of pop, a little bit of hip-hop, a little bit of everything is making up a lot of the instrumentals and even her vocal approaches here. Sometimes she does more of like a talk-sing type thing, and I like that. It works out well, especially on moments like Blow Your Mind, Mwah. That song is catchy as hell. The hook is energetic. It's a lot of fun. I could definitely see this being like a party song, and I hope that it lands in the US and really worldwide. This could be a smash, along with a couple of the other songs here. So let's talk about those moments before we get into the kind of slide that we see, the little decline that we see on the second half of this album. But like I said, Blow Your Mind, a fantastic track. Hotter Than Hell, with those island vibes, it definitely smooths things out. It just has a hook that you can drink like lemonade. It goes right down and it gets stuck in your head almost instantly, and that was one of the first songs that I saw as a standout from this album without even knowing what the singles from it were. The opening track, Genesis, which if you're familiar with the Bible at all, like I am, it means the beginning, you know? It's the first chapter in the Bible, it's the first song on this record, and it makes some references to that, and she does that once again on another track that we'll talk about in a little bit called Garden, referencing the Garden of Eden, but here on Genesis, it's one that is basically calling to mind a lover and praising them, and I like that they're showing things in a positive light here. She's talking to this person saying, you know, oh, you must have been set aside, you seem to be perfect, and a lot of the lyrics on this record, sure, cliche, cheesy, but it's pop fun, and I really cannot resist the way that the percussion on this thing goes. It's kind of got like a little drum clicky rhythm to it, and it's hard to describe, but it really just reels you in, and you get to see exactly what she's doing. And her voice threw me for a loop at first because this is the first song that I ever heard from her. I started playing this album, that was my first exposure. I played Genesis, and I was like, you know what? Second play, I sat there and listened to it twice. This is actually catchy stuff, and I sat through the rest of the record mostly entertained. I respect that Dua Lipa does a lot of the songwriting herself. In fact, the only track where she does not have songwriting credits is on one of the singles, Be The One, but she said, I just could not turn this song down, and I see why. It has this energy to it, kind of a desperation, like, come on, let's work this out, and I like that, and especially as the chorus kind of unravels, her voice gets a little bit faster, and she says, come on baby, let me get to know you, you. We can work this out. Let's just calm down and take this to a different stage, you know, instead of this crisis mode. And I love the track. It goes down smooth. It's a great choice for a single, and it's followed up by one of the best songs on this record. Just a total like middle finger in the air type of song, IDGAF, aka I Don't Give a Fuck. And that song is so catchy. It's so bad in some ways, like so cliche, but at the same time, you know you've had these moments where you just want to tell someone off, you want to push somebody out of your life, and she's saying, you know, like, you can try all you want, but I don't care. Middle finger up, I'm out of here. And she kind of has that attitude throughout. And in fact, some songs, it really just seems like she's a little smarter about it, and especially that one, that's kind of the telling off, but she seems to pass the advice along to her friends. And there's one called New Rules towards the end of the album where she's saying, you know, don't pick up the phone, you know that he's just looking for a booty call, whatever it is, and it's actually kind of a fun song, and one that is kind of a breath of fresh air in the second half of this record, which, yes, unfortunately I do have some problems with. The slow and sultry Thinking About You it's a jam in a way, but at the same time it feels all too familiar. Then you've got No Goodbyes, which definitely just feels like more of like that outside production and songwriting, just kind of walking in circles, and it feels very, very stale and cliche to me, especially considering what I saw in the first half of this record, seeing the talent that she does have. This one just doesn't work out to her abilities. It doesn't put them in the spotlight. And unfortunately, I don't really care for the closing ballad, Homesick, either. It's one of those ones where it's just like, oh, we're closing the album out on a slow note. Let's put on the piano ballad, and it just doesn't have anything to offer that I haven't heard from a variety of other artists, and for that reason, it's one of my least favorites. For the majority of the record, I really want to praise Lipa's vocal approach. I think she has a strong presence behind the microphone, a lot of charisma, and then whenever you see her team up with Miguel on the track Lost in Your Light, which definitely is a really smooth single, I could once again see this just taking off in the US or else in other countries as well. It's a great combination, and it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, Miguel's on the track, she's going to be outweighed by this superstar. I think she really held her own, and honestly, their chemistry on the track does not go unnoticed by me, and I'm sure a lot of other fans and critics as well. I think this is a solid start to Dua Lipa's career. I like the album overall. I think it has a decent replay factor to it, especially in the first half. I would say that is much higher, and overall, I have to give this thing a 3.5 out of 5. Let me know what you thought of Dua Lipa's debut album in the comments section down below. Thank you to everybody who suggested it to me. If you're able to, help me out on Patreon. It's that annotation over there in the corner. Help support a YouTuber that is just trying to get through the adpocalypse. A couple of recent videos right here, social media in the description, and other than that, I'll see you very soon right here on ARTV.